Hey everybody, Spud here, Spud's Outdoors. Today I'm going to hit you with a Honda Tech tip. Right here in front of us we've got an EU3000iS and it's been cold, like below zero cold. And customer states that he was ice fishing, he left, shut the machine off, it stayed out in the cold, and when he went to fire it back up it wouldn't start, pop and fart, and wouldn't take off. So let me give you a reason as to why it does this. So here's our inverter. I've pulled the air filter cover and the air filter off. You can see it's been running kind of rich. And here's why. You get in here and you'll find that there's ice built up in front of your intake. That should not be all icy like it is. I hope the picture's coming out okay, but that is a problem. Reason being is right here. Thanks to our wonderful emissions, you have to run the crankcase fumes or breather right back into the intake to reburn, and thus supposedly cutting down on emissions. But this is causing that hot air to mix in with that cold before it gets into the engine. And as you can see, builds up ice, and the crankcase doesn't breathe correctly. The intake doesn't breathe correctly because of ice. Now, I get they're trying to cut emissions. That's great. But when you block the intake like that, you essentially choke the engine, so it sucks in more fuel and burns more fuel, plus more fuel makes more hydrocarbons. That is not helping emissions. It is hurting them. Take your hose off. Just let it run right here next to the engine. If you're on the ice, there shouldn't be any dust, so that shouldn't cause a problem, just venting it here. But when you get out of that cold weather, hook that bad boy back up so you don't have any other issues. That is a quick way to take care of it. Just let this thing thaw out. Let this run here when the weather's cold. When it warms back up, put that guy back on so you don't get any contaminants in there. But it'd be better if you could plug this off for the short term, put a vacuum cap on. You're trying to keep dust and contaminants out of your engine. It's best to have this on. But once again, when you got sub-zero temperatures, you need to have that unhooked in order for this thing to run an extended period of time. Okay, so it's been a few minutes. It thawed out enough. I could get that chunk of ice out of the intake. There's actually a couple that came out. But check your spark plug out. You take that little cover off. There's the tools you need. That's a 13/16 socket. And here's the spark plug. It's black. It might work, but I don't like doing this stuff out in the cold, so I'm just going to put a new one in. PPR6ES. That's what you need to have on hand. So essentially what's happening is that crankcase breather is breathing air in and out of the crankcase as the piston goes up and down. It needs to make room for the piston and the crankshaft to move, so that air is poofing in and out, and it's pretty much warm, moist air, and it's meeting the Arctic air that comes into the into the air box. And it's really cold, so obviously when you got warm, moist air, it's going to freeze, and it just starts building up on the end of the crankcase tube and back through the crankcase tube, as you saw. Plugs up the air intake, which you saw, and it's just it's a pain in the butt. It's kind of a poor design, but that's to pass for emissions. That's where they have to route it. So. Like I said, this is a ice fishing scenario. If we're talking about dusty camping or something, obviously we don't want to have that. We don't want to have contaminants go into the air box where that hose is. You're going to take off. So wrap it up with some tape if it makes you feel better. But the scenario I'm talking about, where it's okay to probably leave it open, is going to be on the ice where there's no dust. There might be a little snow, but it's not going to be a problem. So anyway, the biggest thing that you need to remember is that you need to keep an extra spark plug on hand and the tools to do it. And I'll put it in a little description down below here if I can figure that out. The spark plug in this scenario, what number it is, the extension 13/16 socket, I believe it is, and the number 3 Phillips. So pretty simple tools to have. You need a big flat screwdriver to get that door open, or your knife, or whatever, a coin of some sort, whatever works. But biggest thing is keep those on hand. Another air filter would be great, but hopefully the idea behind the video is hopefully if you're searching for a solution to a problem that you might have, you can get that generator inside your fish house and get it warmed up, let that stuff thaw out, do like I said, if you keep that spark plug on hand, you're going to be prepared for this situation where you can just fix it yourself and get it running and not have an emergency trip to town or whatever it might be. So that's the idea behind the video. Hopefully save you a trip, keep you safe, keep your engine running, and hopefully you can keep catching fish, because right now we aren't catching squat. So anyway, hopefully this helps. I hope you like the information that's coming to you. I'll try to keep thinking of tips like this to help you out, stuff that I've come across. And like and subscribe if you would, please, to help out the channel. And in the meantime, keep on keeping on. Thank you much. Enjoy.